Hey everyone, and welcome to the Chronicler's Desk. You know, we're basically surrounded by ghosts, not spooky ghosts, but the ghosts of entire civilizations, societies that built these incredible, thriving worlds, and then just vanished. It's a massive mystery, right? And today, we're going to dig into it and see what their stories, their echoes from the past, can actually teach us about our own future. All right, just look at this. This is Mesa Verde. And I mean, really look at these incredible cliff dwellings. About 800 years ago, this place was buzzing with life. The ancestral Puebloans literally carved these cities into the side of a cliff. But then, around 1300, they just left. The entire place went silent. And the crazy thing is, they were far from the only ones. So that brings us to the big question, the one we're really trying to answer today. What on earth happens? Is there some common thread, some fatal flaw that connects the Maya, the Akkadian Empire, and the people of Mesa Verde? I mean, how does a society that seems totally invincible just stop? Or maybe, just maybe, what we call a collapse isn't a collapse at all. Okay, so there's a simple story for all of this, right? It's the one most of us have probably heard, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense on the surface. It's the classic tale of when the water just ran out. Yeah, the narrative usually goes something like this. A civilization is doing great, population is booming, everything's golden. But then the climate shifts. The rains stop coming, the rivers start to dry up, and the one thing they need to survive, water, is gone. And the end result is always the same: total collapse. And look, there's a ton of evidence that seems to back this up. You look at Mesa Verde, boom, a massive 23-year drought hits right when their society unravels. The Akkadians, one of the world's first empires, an abrupt shift to drier conditions seems to be the culprit. And you see this pattern over and over again: the Maya, the societies of the late Bronze Age, even China's Tang dynasty. It really feels like the fingerprint of a massive, civilization-ending drought is all over the crime scene. And it makes sense. Sarah Novak from Discover magazine said it really well. Civilization is fragile, and a big climate shock can be just enough to knock over an empire that seemed invincible. It's a really compelling, tidy story. But what if it's not the whole story? Okay, because this is where things get really interesting. A whole bunch of new research is starting to poke holes in that simple climate story. It's suggesting that the version we all think we know might be, well, dangerously incomplete. So let's just ask it straight up. Was it really that simple? Is a whole civilization just a helpless victim of the weather? Or is there something deeper, something else entirely going on here? Now, you've probably heard of the ecocide model. It was made super popular by books like Jared Diamond's Collapse. And the basic idea is that these societies are their own worst enemies. They cut down all their trees, mismanage their land, and basically destroy their own environment, leading to their downfall. It's a powerful cautionary tale for us today, for sure. But a lot of archaeologists and historians are starting to push back, and push back hard. I mean, check out this quote from archaeologist Norman Yaffe. He does not pull any punches. He says that simple ecocide idea is, and I'm quoting, wrong in ways that matter. So why does it matter? Because by oversimplifying what happened, we might be missing a much, much more important lesson. Let's take the poster child for this whole idea: Easter Island, or Rapa Nui. The myth we all know is about a huge population, maybe 20,000 people, who stupidly cut down every last tree to move those giant statues, which led to chaos, war, and collapse. But the latest research, it paints a completely different picture. We're talking about a much smaller, stable population, maybe around 3,000 people, who were living sustainably for centuries. And get this, when Europeans first showed up, the society wasn't in ruins. It was probably at its peak. So what we're about to do is completely change the way you see societal collapse. The big takeaway here is that these ancient peoples weren't just fragile victims waiting for disaster to strike. The real story is so much more complex, and frankly, a lot more interesting, and way more useful for us today. And getting to that truth means digging deeper than the simple headlines, which is exactly what we love to do here. So if you value explainers that aren't afraid to dig a little deeper and challenge the stories we think we know, now is the perfect time to support the channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the bell. That way you won't miss a single explainer that changes how you see the world. All right, so if the simple story of collapse and ruin is incomplete, then what's the real story? What's the deeper truth? Well, instead of just focusing on failure, let's flip the script. Let's talk about how societies survive, how they adapt, and how they transform. Let's talk about resilience. So what exactly is social resilience? Think of it like this. It's a society's ability to take a punch, a big shock like a mega drought, and not just fall apart. It's the capacity to respond, to reorganize, to change things up in order to keep the essential parts of their society running. It's not about being rigid and unchanging. It's all about being adaptable. And you know what's incredible? When you actually start mapping out the evidence from all over the world, you find that resilience isn't the exception, it's the rule. I mean, from ancient China to Southwest Asia to the Americas, people have been dealing with massive climate shocks for thousands of years. They built complex irrigation systems, they switched to different crops, they moved entire communities to find water. And that tells us something really profound. Total collapse is actually the rare dramatic event. Resilience, adapting, that's the normal human story. So this really forces us to rethink what we even mean by the word collapse. It's almost never a full-on apocalypse where everyone dies. Take the Maya, for instance. It was more of a political reorganization. People left the big cities and the rule of their kings and moved into smaller communities. They didn't disappear. Or the ancestral Puebloans. That was a strategic migration. They moved to places like the Rio Grande Valley, where their descendants still thrive today. It's transformation, not annihilation. I mean, there are more than 7 million descendants of the ancient Maya alive today. They didn't vanish, they adapted. And even when societies do go through these huge, drastic changes, the climate is usually just one piece of a much larger puzzle. In one Maya region, for example, the whole system fell apart because of intense, constant warfare that started before the crops even began to fail. And think about the Roman Republic. It wasn't a drought that brought it down. It was a century of political decay, where all the rules were broken and violence became just another political tool. Which, of course, brings us to the most important part of this whole story. What do all these echoes from the past have to teach us about our own pretty fragile world today? How can they actually help guide us into the future? Look, the simple lesson from those old collapse stories is pretty obvious. Don't mess up your environment. And yeah, of course, that's true. But the deeper lesson, the one that's way more urgent for us right now, is this. A society's biggest vulnerability isn't a drought or deforestation. It's the loss of social cohesion. It's when political stability starts to crumble. The real threat is when we lose the ability to work together. It's not the climate change itself that determines our fate. It's how we respond to it as a society that matters. I mean, just think about the challenges we're facing right now. Climate change, political polarization, economic worries. It's all one big complex system. And the clearest warning from history is that pointing the finger at one single thing, whether it's the climate or a political party, is a massive trap. The real danger isn't the problem itself, it's the breakdown of our ability to actually solve it together. And that really leaves us with this one final, pretty sobering thought. A society, a republic, it's not a permanent feature of the landscape. It's a choice that people have to keep making every single day. And so the real question these lost civilizations are asking us across the centuries isn't, will the climate change? Of course it will. The real question is, when the challenges come, will we be able to face them together? That's all we have for today. Thanks so much for joining us here at the Chronicler's Desk as we listened to some pretty powerful echoes from the past. Hopefully, they help us understand our own time a little better. We'll see you next time.